Marama Fox.
Tēnā koe te mana whakawānei, te mihi atu ki a koutou, ki a tātou koutou o Rangitāne, koutou i tai tawhiti mai, koutou kua tai a tīnana mai, a kanohi mai, nei te mihi atu ki a koutou katoa. Te hunga rangatahi o te kuro o Tāmaki nui-a rua, kai te mihi atu ki a koutou kua tai mai ki te ātatiro atu ki tēnei rangi, rangi whakahira tēnei rangi. Kai te mihi atu ki a koutou. I'm not going to take too much time in a great big long mihi. We all know what we're here for. And we're here finally after first submitting the claims in the 80s. And I want to acknowledge some people, and I have a great big list, and I'm really scared about doing this because then I'm going to miss some people out. So, but here we go. We'll see how well I did, and you can tell me off after. First of all, I want to acknowledge Uncle Cookie and Auntie Helen. And I'll talk more about that soon when I cast our minds back to 2004 when the tribunal came to Te Ore Marae. But I also want to acknowledge Auntie Margaret and Auntie Barbara Kōpua, Auntie Barbie. You know, all of my aunties who have passed away while we've waited for this day to come, who were all there in 2004, listening to our Rangitāne whānau stand up and lay their claim in front of the Waitangi Tribunal. But I also want to acknowledge Uncle Jim, Mike, and your whānau, Irana. I want to acknowledge Auntie Mere, Kirahi, tēnā koe, Auntie Kate, Nani Hinero, lovely to see you. I know, I've got to get your name in the Hansard, and I'll try not to use the you because they tell us off for that, but Nani Hinero Te Tau is here. Manahi Paiwai, Maisie, Jason, Mavis, I'm going to get told off, I know I've forgotten someone. Richard, Tipene, Piri, kia ora rā, John Sprout, Tina Te Tau, Henare Te Kani. Where are you, Henare? Oh, ka pai. Mavis, of course, Jason, Yvette, Warwick, Gurnifer, Edward Pearce, Mahalia Paiwai, and Taylor Mihairi. Now, I've read out a great big list of people, and you can tell me off later, but I just want to acknowledge how much it takes to come to this point. And in 2004, if we remember that day, we've just taken Uncle Cookie onto the marae at Te Ore to turn around then and clear the marae for the tribunal to come in. And it was a significant day that will forever be etched in my memory. That year, 2004, was a historic year for us. In 2004, and not because I came home to Wairarapa to take up the role of principal at the kura, but because of the significant acknowledgement of our people finally. The biggest ever exhibition at the Aratoi Arts and History Museum, where all of our marae got to come in week after week, lay their taonga in front of the people. Never had an exhibition like it. 24,000 people came through that exhibition. That's the whole entire population of Masterton. We took all our kids there. And I remember the day that year when my brother Rawiri stood in front of our wharekura class, first wharekura established, and there were 4 of us, 4 students. Mike Kawana was there, little Mikey and Frankie, I think Ririwai, and who else? Jareth. That was it. There were 4 of them. And by the end of the year, we had 7. But Rawiri stood up and he connected them in the very first lesson, how they were connected by whakapapa to both Rangitāne, to Kahungunu, and to each other. And I'll always remember Uncle Cookie saying, taking me into the marae at Te Ore into the whare at Te Ore, show me the photos on the wall, and that's your tupuna, that's why you have a waiwai here and a waiwai there. I feel like Tara over the maunga. But I heard that story actually in a different way, that he missed his wife so much he looked at those twin peaks and was a bit moke. Just saying. But that year, free and frank, but that year was significant for us because we were getting over 10 years of heartbreak where we were known in Wairarapa for killing our children. That's what we were known for. And when we took our wharekura kids to Raukawa to study, and they stood up and introduced themselves as being from Wairarapa, the entire audience went, oh. And they would connect themselves to every other piece of whakapapa that they could find. I'm not from Wairarapa or from Kahungunu or Rangitane, I'm from Tūhoi, or I'm from Ngāti Porou, or I'm from Ngāpuhi. They were... All right, that's because you fellas infiltrated everywhere. But they were ashamed of being from our own town, from our own rohe, our babies. And it was heartbreaking. And I remember Rawiri came up with a plan. He'd found a kōrero in the Māori Land Court records from Tāmaki that said, he whakatō tāne no Tāmaki he toa. The making of a man is in Tāmaki, the warrior. And not because he was a warrior, and not because he was the chief, but because he was known for looking after his whānau. And he thought about that as my brother does. You know him. And he came up with a plan. He said, you know, our kids talk about being the man or the woman. And so he started making posters of all our ancestors. His dream was to put them on every lamppost from the block all the way to town so our kids would walk past them every day. And he put them up around the classroom walls. Nui-a was the man because. Niniwa i te rangi was the woman because. And started bringing these names of our ancestors and reminding them that they were born of greatness, that they had nothing to be ashamed of, that they could stand in the shadow of their ancestors and be proud. And so I want to remind us of one of those ancestors, nui-a. Nui-a, who owned a hotel that the coach line had to come through. Right there, the hall still stands there, but does anybody notice it as you zoom past? You know, I think of that forest, te tāpere nui o whātonga, chopped down by our Viking cousins, because now we've married them all, so they're all interrelated as well, from Norsewood. Chopped our forest down, said to be so heavily shaded by the canopy that you needed a light to travel through it. And nui-a, who fought for his land, who fought to say, no, I'm not going to stop paying my leases. I'm not going to stop charging leases to the settlers, because yes, we embraced settlers. They could come. We were some of the richest landowners in this country who had our own businesses, who exported to all over the world, who had trade. And we went from that to this because somebody came along and said, you can't pay your land leases to the Māori anymore. And nui-a, at 65, took them to the Privy Council and won. And won. And when he got back, despite winning, they dismissed it and still took his land. We all need to know, because I grew up in one of the most prized educations in this land in Christchurch. People move into those suburbs to try and get that education, and I knew nothing until I came home to Wairarapa and learnt about our people and our greatness, the greatness that you fight for. And today, in my last 53 seconds, I just want to acknowledge that we are here and we are born of greatness, and we rise and we thrive. And this might be a little bit of pūtea and the greatest gift back to this nation, that we accept such a pittance for the travesty that has happened, but we're still here and we're resilient and we rise. And we do it on the backs of your efforts, on the backs of these tamariki on whose behalf we continue to fight. And we do it on the backs of our tūpuna who left this legacy of power for us. And we do it on the backs of aroha, because what we do because we love who we love. and we carry on and we rise. Tēnā koutou, kia ora mai tātou katoa.
Alistair Scott.
Mr. Speaker, well, that's a hard act to follow. And I would like to acknowledge